Welcome to Barb's Kitchen Center. My name's Celeste, and this is my test kitchen. Today we are going to go back to looking at old cookbooks and trying some of the old recipes out of old cookbooks. Today's recipe is baking powder buckwheat cakes, which, based on reading the recipe, sounds like a griddle cake. So for this I'll need a cup and a half of buckwheat, a half of cup of sifted white flour, 5 teaspoons of baking powder, a quarter of a teaspoon of salt, 1 tablespoon of shortening, which will need to be melted, which is I have got right here. Given a choice between shortenings anything. It could be lard, and I could have used some bacon fat we have here. It could be cooking oil, but when it says shortening, they usually want something that's solid that will then melt. So if you wanted to take a vegan route, you could use a coconut oil. There we go. Because coconut oil is a solid when it's at room temperature. I'll need a cup and a half of milk and a tablespoon of molasses. So let's get started. First, it says to sift all of our dry ingredients together. So I will start with the cup and a half of buckwheat flour. All right, buckwheat flour is gluten-free, so it is great for anybody who's trying to maintain a gluten-free diet. So, a quarter of a cup, half a cup, 3/4 of a cup, 1 cup. Now, if this were a really fussy recipe where it had to be exact, you would want to take a flat edge and level off your cup. It's a griddle cake. It's fundamentally a pancake. I'm not going to be super fussy about it. It's a cup and a quarter, right? And cup and a half. There we go. Next, we will need a half a cup of white flour. So this is not gluten-free. So again, if you were looking at maintaining a gluten-free diet, you would want to substitute a gluten-free flour. We have a fabulous gluten-free flour here that you can substitute 1 for 1 with your normal flour. Yay, I used up a bag. So that would be half a cup. The 5 teaspoons of baking powder. Sink. 5 teaspoons of baking powder, half a teaspoon of salt. If you're using salted butter, omit the salt. I usually use unsalted butter, so I have included the salt. Shortening, milk, molasses. All right, just going to mix this up a little bit. And then, so we've sifted our dry ingredients together. We need to combine the melted shortening, the butter, the melted shortening, which is the butter, the milk, which is in the fridge still. So again, and that was 1.5 cups of milk. Okay, so actually, I'm just going to put the milk straight in. One. Half. 3/4. 1. A half. 1 1/4. And 1 1/2. Our melted shortening. And our tablespoon of molasses. I'm going to eyeball that because molasses is super sticky and it is difficult to clean off. So, there we go. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy, all mixed up. I will now put my griddle pan on here. It should still be fairly warm. Yes, it is. Okay, our dough is between a really loose dough and a really stiff batter. So I am going to drop this on a warm griddle using an ice cream scoop. And I'll just pat it down a little bit here and see what we get, other than a mess. Let's see. There we go. And put another one down. Get a flipper. There we go. Come on, don't stick. All right. So this is a recipe I have never ever tried before. So we will see how it goes. I do think I need a little more fat in that pan. So I'll put a little more butter in there. Probably not drop it right in the middle of the griddle cake. So this is a non-stick pan, but the fat still helps you cook your cake. Probably would have been much nicer in a little bigger pan, would have been easier to flip them, but again, brand new recipe. Never tried it before. We will see how it goes. Well, they are not sticking. Which is good news. And they do puff up when they hit the pan. But they're very dark, so, but that's from the buckwheat. All right, I have a little bit of grease in the griddle, or frying pan, and I will use my spatula to flatten it out a bit. Clean my mess up off the counter. My fingers. So I have noticed, because we've already pre-fried one, I've noticed that they take a little longer to cook. They're quite soft and they get quite dark. So, but we have learned many things from our first attempt at baking these. So when you're frying something like that, if or like this, or like anything really, and you like the flavor of butter, but you find that it burns before your whatever, your griddle cake, your pancake, your waffle, your steak, your pork chop get cooked, if you add a little bit of oil, it will change the smoke point and burn point of your butter, and you won't get this smoking going on, and you'll be able to cook your items at a much higher temperature with better results. You'll still get all the butter flavor, but you will not get all the smoke, and you won't get the burning of the butter, because butter goes from a really lovely nutty brown butter to a really unpleasant burnt butter in fairly short order. So this will just take a few more minutes till the center gets cooked. It's a little bit like doing an English muffin. You have to keep flipping it because the outside gets quite dark really quickly, but it's going to take a little while for the inside to bake. With English muffins, if you've ever made English muffins, sorry, my cameraman is like dancing behind the camera, making weird faces at me. Today we have my son doing the camera work because Tony's away on vacation, so nobody can mock somebody like a child can mock their parent. Anyhow, so, you know that speeding ticket I paid for yesterday? Stop mocking me. Anyhow, so with something like this, if you were concerned it was getting too dark on the outside, absolutely put it on a sheet pan, throw it in the oven. It'll stop the burning on the outsides, but we'll get the insides nicely baked. Or you can just stand here and continue to flip it. It's not like flipping, it's not going to make it tough on the inside or any of the other old wives' tales you've heard. It will just continue to bake evenly all the way around. Other solutions are making them super, super thin. But, you know, it's nice to have something with a little heft to it. All right, I will continue making up our buckwheat griddle cakes, and we'll see if we can get some staff reviews for you. Have a great day, and thank you once again for joining us here at Barb's Kitchen Center and Celeste's Test Kitchen.